What is the most valuable resource on Earth? Is it gold, oil, or perhaps data? If you had asked me this question 20 years ago, my answer would have been very different. But today, in the mid-2020s, the most precious commodity in the world is a small sliver of silicon that can fit in the palm of your hand. This chip isn't just a processor, it is the engine driving the next industrial revolution. While the world was busy marveling at ChatGPT's latest tricks, while Elon Musk was training his fleet of robots, and while Mark Zuckerberg was pivoting the entire weight of Meta towards artificial intelligence, there was one name sitting silently at the center of it all: NVIDIA. Today, NVIDIA is no longer just a company, it has become a sovereign power. With a market capitalization crossing the $3 trillion mark, it has surpassed the GDP of most developed nations. If you sold NVIDIA today, you could theoretically buy the entire economy of several countries combined. But the real question isn't how much money they have. The question is, how did a company that was making video game toys for children just 10 years ago suddenly become the backbone of the global AI economy? Was it just luck, or was it a master plan hatched by Jensen Huang 30 decades ago in a cheap roadside diner? Today on Empire Anatomy, we dissect the NVIDIA empire. We will uncover the silent strategy that left giants like Intel and AMD in the dust. We will analyze the CUDA Moat and understand how NVIDIA quietly seized control of the future of humanity. To understand the empire, we must first understand the emperor. Jensen Huang wasn't born with a silver spoon. He immigrated to the US from Taiwan as a child. His journey was anything but easy. He was sent to a boarding school for troubled youth, where he was bullied and forced to clean the boys' toilets every single day. He didn't complain, he worked. He learned the value of hard labor early on. Later, while studying, he worked as a dishwasher and a waiter at a Denny's restaurant. It was in that very same diner, over endless cups of coffee in 1993, that the idea for NVIDIA was born. Jensen, along with his co-founders Chris and Curtis, saw that the world of computing was moving towards visuals. At that time, PCs were boring boxes used for spreadsheets. Jensen wanted them to be machines of imagination. The early years were a complete nightmare. NVIDIA's first chip, the NV1, was a commercial disaster. It used a different mathematical approach, quadrilateral mapping, instead of the industry-standard triangles. When Microsoft announced that its DX software would only support triangles, NVIDIA was left for dead. Jensen found himself weeks away from bankruptcy. He had to fire 70% of his staff. But in that moment of crisis, he displayed the leadership that would define the company. He secured a deal with Sega, took a massive gamble on a new architecture called the RIVA 128, and saved the company in the final hour. By 1999, they didn't just make a graphics card, they invented a new category, the GPU. But why does a GPU matter for AI? To the average person, a chip is just a chip, but the difference is fundamental. Think of a CPU, the traditional heart of a computer, like a world-class librarian or a PhD professor. If you ask it to solve one incredibly complex math problem, it does it fast. This is sequential processing. Now, imagine you need to move 1,000 small bricks. The professor can still only move one brick at a time. A GPU is like 1,000 construction workers. Individually, they aren't as smart as the professor, but they work in parallel. They can move all 1,000 bricks at the exact same time. For 20 years, people thought this parallel processing was only useful for putting pixels on a screen for video games like Doom and Quake. They were wrong. The real strategic masterstroke came in 2006. While Intel was dominating the world with the Pentium and Core processors, NVIDIA was investing billions of dollars, money they barely had, into a software platform called CUDA.
CUDA allowed developers to talk directly to those construction workers on the GPU. It turned the graphics card into a general-purpose math machine. For nearly a decade, Wall Street hated this. Analysts called it Jensen's folly. They didn't understand why a gaming company was spending so much money on scientific research software. NVIDIA's stock price was flat, and investors were calling for Jensen's resignation. But Jensen was playing a 20-year game. He knew that the software world would eventually need massive parallel power. He was building the road before the cars were even invented. Then the world changed in 2012 with a breakthrough known as AlexNet. A group of researchers used two NVIDIA GTX 580 chips to train a neural network to recognize images. The results were so far ahead of anything else that the entire academic world stopped in its tracks. This was the big bang of AI. Every tech giant, Google, Microsoft, Amazon, and Meta, realized that if they wanted to build AI, they couldn't do it on Intel's CPUs. They needed NVIDIA. However, NVIDIA didn't just stop at selling chips. This is where their empire strategy becomes truly brilliant. Jensen Huang realized that hardware is a commodity, but an ecosystem is a monopoly. They built the CUDA Moat. Because they had been giving their software to universities for free for years, an entire generation of computer scientists grew up only knowing how to code on NVIDIA. If a developer tried to switch to a competitor like AMD or Intel, they would find that none of their code worked. Switching was too expensive, too slow, and too risky. NVIDIA had effectively locked in the world's smartest minds. But the empire needed more. Jensen began a series of aggressive acquisitions. The most notable was the $7 billion purchase of Mellanox. Many wondered why a chip company wanted a networking company. The answer was simple. In a modern AI data center, the bottleneck isn't how fast one chip can think, it's how fast thousands of chips can talk to each other. By owning the networking technology, NVIDIA controlled the highways of the data center. They weren't just a chip company anymore. They were a data center scale company. Then came the accidental fuel for their rocket ship, cryptocurrency. In 2017 and again in 2021, the world went into a frenzy for Bitcoin and Ethereum. Miners realized that NVIDIA GPUs were the most efficient tools for mining digital gold. Demand exploded. Prices for graphics cards doubled and tripled. Even though NVIDIA tried to distance itself from the volatility of crypto, the cash influx allowed them to outspend every competitor in R&D. They used the gaming and crypto money to build the AI future. Today, we are in the era of the H100 and the upcoming Blackwell architecture. The H100 is not just a chip, it is a miracle of engineering. It contains 80 billion transistors. It is so powerful that a single unit can perform tasks that would have required a supercomputer 10 years ago. These chips are so valuable that they are now used as collateral for multi-billion-dollar loans. They are the new oil. Countries like Saudi Arabia and the UAE are buying them by the thousands to secure their future in the global economy. The U.S. government has even restricted the export of these chips to China, treating them like high-level weapons technology. When you use ChatGPT, you're not just using an app, you are utilizing a massive wall of thousands of NVIDIA H100s sitting in a data center somewhere, consuming massive amounts of electricity to give you an answer. But look at the fallen kings. Intel, a company that once defined the silicon era, is now worth a fraction of NVIDIA. Intel failed because they focused on the present, while Jensen focused on the impossible future. AMD, led by Jensen's distant cousin Lisa Su, is putting up a brave fight, but they are fighting against 20 years of software dominance. Financially, NVIDIA is defying the laws of gravity. In their recent earnings reports, they showed a revenue growth of over 260% year over year. Their net profit margins are higher than luxury brands like Ferrari or Hermes. They are making money at a scale that is almost impossible to comprehend. But with this level of power comes immense risk. The Taiwan problem is the single biggest threat to the global economy. Almost 90% of the world's high-end chips are made by one company, TSMC, in Taiwan. If a conflict occurs in the Taiwan Strait, the NVIDIA empire, and with it the entire AI revolution, would grind to a halt. There is no backup factory. There is no second source. Furthermore, NVIDIA's customers are also its biggest threats. Google, Amazon, Meta, and Microsoft are all currently spending billions to design their own in-house chips. They want to kill the NVIDIA tax. If Google can move its AI workloads to its own